Oh, it's quite all right. You're not disturbing me. I would much rather talk than work. Yet, here I am, day after day, haunted by the same thought. I must write. I must write. I must write. This is my study, the place in which I write all my stories. I built it myself, actually. Cut the timber and fitted the logs. Made an awful mess of it. I do my writing here at the side because the roof leaks directly over my desk. I would move my desk, but it covers a hole I left in the floor. And the floor was built on the side of a hill, so in heavy rains it tends to slide. Many's the day I've stood in this cabin and passed my neighbors standing in the street. Still, I'm happy here, although I don't get enough visitors to suit me. People tend to shy away from writers. They always assume we're busy thinking. It's not true. Even my dear, sweet mother doesn't like to disturb me, so she tiptoes on up here and leaves my food by the door. I haven't had a hot meal in years. But I've done a good deal of writing here, perhaps a bit too much. I look out the window and think to myself that life is passing me at a furious rate, and I ask myself this question. What force is it that compels me to write so incessantly, day after day, page after page, story after story? And the answer is quite simple. I have no choice. I am a writer. Sometimes I think I may be mad. Oh, it's quite all right. I'm harmless, although I do admit to fits of wandering. I'm engaged in conversations where I see nothing and hear only the silent movement of lips, all the while I'm thinking to myself, yes, he'll make a wonderful character for a story, this one. And while I'm writing, I enjoy it. And I like reading the proofs. But the moment it appears in print, I can't bear it. I see that it's all wrong, a mistake that ought to never have been written, and I am miserable. And then the public reads it. Charming, clever. Yes, charming, but a far cry from Tolstoy. Or a fine thing, but Turgenev's Fathers and Sons is better. And so it will be, to my dying day, charming and clever, and nothing more. When I die, my friends will pass by my grave and say, here lies so-and-so, a good writer, but Turgenev was better. You know, it's funny, but before you came in, I was thinking to myself, perhaps I should give it up one day. What would I do instead? Well, I've never fully admitted this before, but to you here in the theater tonight, I would like to tell you what I would most like to do with my life. Ever since I was a small child, I always, excuse me a moment, just making a note. An idea just occurred to me, the subject for a short story. It was my mentioning of the theater that sparked me. What was it we were talking about a moment ago? No matter, my thoughts are consumed with this new idea. See if this appeals to you. It starts in a theater. It starts on the opening night of a new season. It starts with all those dear and devoted patrons of the arts commenting on how this one looks and how that one is dressed, scarcely knowing what play they're about to see that evening, with the exception of one man, Ivan Ilyich Cherdyakov. If Ivan Ilyich Cherdyakov, a civil servant, a clerk in the Ministry of Public Parks, had any passion and life at all, it was the theater. He certainly had hopes and visions for higher office and had dedicated his life to hard work, zeal, and patience. Still, he would not deny himself his one great pleasure. So, he purchased 2 tickets to the very best section of the theater's opening night's performance of Rostov's The Bearded Countess. As fortune would have it, into the theater that night came his respected superior, General Mikhail Brasilov, the Minister of Public Parks himself.
Good evening, General.
What? Oh, yes. Good evening.
Permit me, sir. I am Cherdyakov, Ivan Ilyich. This is a great honor for me, sir.
Yes.
Like yourself, dear General, I too serve the Ministry of Public Parks. That is to say, I serve you, who is indeed himself the Minister of Public Parks. I am the Assistant Chief Clerk in the Department of Trees and Bushes.
Ah, yes. Keep up the good work. Lovely trees and bushes this year. Very nice.
My wife would very much like to say hello. This is she, my wife, Madame Cherdiakov.
How do you do?
My pleasure.
My pleasure, General.
How do you do?
Madame Brasilov. My wife would very much like to say hello. This is she, my wife, Madame Cherdiakov.
How do you do, Madame Brasilov? How do you do? I just had the pleasure of meeting your husband.
And I am my wife's husband. How do you do, Madame Brasilov?
Shh! Sorry. Terribly sorry.
I hope you enjoy your play, sir.
I will if I watch it.
Having made the most of this golden opportunity, Ivan Ilyich Cherdyakov sat back to enjoy the bearded countess. He was no longer a stranger to the Minister of Public Parks. They had become, if one wanted to be generous about the matter, familiar with each other. Then, quite suddenly, without any warning, like a bolt from a gray thundering sky, Ivan Ilyich Cherdyakov reared his head back and...
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I'm so terribly sorry, Your Excellency.
Never mind. It's all right.
All right? It's certainly not all right. It was unpardonable. It was monstrous of me.
Too much of the matter. Let it rest.
Let it rest? How can I let it rest? It was inexcusable. Permit me to wipe your neck, sir. It's the least I can do.
Leave it be. It's all right, I say.
But I splattered you, sir. Your complete head is splattered. It was an accident, I assure you, but it's disgusting.
Sorry, my apologies.
The thing is, Your Excellency, it came out of my nose without warning. It was out before I could stifle it. Yes, certainly. I'm sorry. It's not a cold if that's what you're worried about. Probably a particle of dust in the nostril.
But try as he might, Cherdyakov could not get the incident out of his mind. The sneeze, merely an innocent anatomical accident, had grown out of all proportion in his mind until it resembled the angry roar of a cannon aimed squarely at the enemy camp. He played the incident back in his mind, slowing the procedure down so he could view again in horror the infamous deed.
Charming, charming.
Yes, charming.
Charming, simply charming. Wasn't it charming, my dear?
I found it utterly charming.
I was certainly charmed by it.
Excuse me.
Who's
Excuse me,
tapping?
Excellency.
Someone's tapping me. Who's that tapping?
I'm tapping. I'm the tapper, sir. Cherdyakov.
Stand back, dear. It's the sneezer.
No, I'm all sneezed out now. I was just worried about you going to the night fair with a damp head.
It was a trifle, a mere faux pas. Forget it, young man. Amusing play, don't you think? Did you find it amusing?
Amusing. Oh my goodness, yes! Oh, true! That's not as much in years.
Which part did you find most interesting?
The sneeze. The part where I sneezed on you, sir. It was unforgivable.
Forget it, young man. Come, my dear. It looks like rain. I don't want to get my head wet again.
You shouldn't let people sneeze on you, dear. You are not to be sneezed at.
I'm ruined. Ruin! I'll be fired from trees and bushes, and they'll send me down to branches and the wings.
Come, Ivan.
What?
You mustn't let it concern you. It was just a harmless little sneeze. The general's probably forgotten it already.
You really think so?
No. I'm scared, Ivan.
And so they walked home in despair.
Perhaps I should buy him a gift. Maybe some Turkish towels will suffice.
Cherdiakov's once promising career had literally been blown away.
Why did this happen to me? Why did I go to the theater at all? Why did I send people of my own class? They love sneezing on each other.
Come to bed, Ivan.
Perhaps, if I were to call on the general again and explain matters in such a charming, honest, and self-effacing manner, he'd have no choice but to forgive me.
Maybe it's best not to remind him, Ivan.
No. If I ever expect to become a gentleman, I must behave like one.
And so the morning came. It just so happened that this was the day that the general listened to petitions. And since there were 50 or 60 petitions ahead of Cherdiakov, he waited from morning till late. Late afternoon.
Next! Next!
I am not next, Your Excellency. I am last.
Very well then. Last.
That's me, Your Excellency.
Well, what is your petition?
I have no petition, sir. I'm not a petitioner.
Then you waste my time.
Do you not recognize me? We met last night under rather explosive circumstances. I am the splatterer.
The what?
The sneezer, the one who sneezed, the sneezing splatterer.
Indeed, and what is it you want now? Gesundheit?
No, Your Excellency. Your forgiveness. I want to point out that there was no antisocial or political motivation behind the sneeze. It was a non-partisan, non-violent act of God. I curse the day the protuberance formed itself on my face. It is a hateful nose, sir, and I am not responsible for its indiscretions. Punish that which committed the crime, but absolve the innocent body behind it. Exile my nose, but forgive me, your kidship. Forgive me.
My dear young man, I am not angry with your nose. I am too busy to have time for your nasal problems. I suggest you go home. Take a hot bath or a cold one. Take something, but don't bother me with the silly business. Gibber, gibber, gibber. That is all I've heard all day. Gibber, 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 gibber.
Thank you, sir. May God bless you, your wife, and your household. May your days be sweet, and may your nights be better than your days.
The feeling of relief that washed over Cherdiakov was enormous.
May the birds sing at your window, and may the coffee in your cup be strong and hot.
The weight of the burden that was lifted was inestimable.
I worship the chair you sit on, and I worship the uniform that sits on the chair that I so worship.
And so he went home, singing and whistling like a lark. Life was surely a marvel, a joy, a heavenly paradise.
Oh God, I am happy.
And yet, when he arrived home, he began to think.
Have I been the butt of a cruel and thoughtless joke?
Had the minister toyed with Cherdiakov?
If he had no intention of punishing me, why did he torment me so unmercifully?
If the sneeze meant so little to the minister, why did he deliberately cause Cherdiakov to writhe in his bed?
To twist in agony the entire night.
Cherdiakov was furious.
I am furious.
He foamed and fumed and paced the night through, and in the morning he called out to his wife, Sonia!
Sonia! I have been humiliated.
You, Ivan? Who'd humiliate you? You're such a kind and generous person.
Who? I'll tell you who. General Brasilov, the Minister of Public Parks himself.
What did he do?
The swine! I was humiliated in such subtle fashion, it was almost indiscernible. I was practically forced to come to his office and grovel and beg on my knees. I was reduced to a gibbering idiot.
You were that reduced?
I must go back and tell him what I think of him. The lower classes must speak up. The world must be made a safe space so men of all nations and creeds, regardless of color or religion, will be free to sneeze at their superiors. It is he who will be humiliated by I.
And so the next morning, Cherdyakov went to humiliate he.
Last. Well?
Well, do you not recognize me? Look at my face. Yes, you're quite correct. It is I once again.
It is you once again. Who?
Chernikov, Excellency. I return, taking neither a hot bath nor a cold one.
Who let this fool in? What is it?
What is it? What is it, you say? You sit there behind your desk and ask me, what is it? You sit there behind your lofty position as General and Minister of Public Parks, a member of high social standing among the upper classes, and ask me, a lowly civil servant, what is it? You sit there with full knowledge that there is no equality in this life. There are those of us who serve, and there are those of us who are served. There are those of us who obey, and there are those of us who are obeyed. There are those of us who are bow, and there are those of us who are bowed too. And that in this life there are certain events that take place that cause some of us to be humiliated, and those to be the cause of that humiliation. And still you ask, what is it?
What is it? Don't stand there gibbering like an idiot. What is it you want?
I'll tell you what I want. I want to apologize. I was trying to make it quite clear. It was an accident, I assure you.
Out! Out! You idiot! You fool! Get out of my sight! I never want to see you again! If you ever cross my line of vision, I will have you exiled forever! What's your name? You germ spreader! You maggot! You insect! No, you're lower than an insect! You're the second cousin to a cockroach! You're the son-in-law of a bedbug! You're the nephew of a ringworm! You're nothing! Nothing! Do you hear me? Nothing!
At that moment, something broke loose inside of Cherdyakov. Something so deep and vital, so organic that the damage that was done seemed irreparable. Something drained from Cherdyakov that could only be described as the very life force itself. The matter was over, for once, for all, forever. What happened next was quite simple. Ivan Ilyich Cherdyakov took off his coat, lay down on the sofa, and died.